Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Hello everyone, and welcome back to this next installment of the series comparing Games Workshop and OnePage Rules. I know it's been a little bit since I posted a video in the series here, but these videos are actually turning out to be the most work to produce and to edit and to get ready. The battle reports, those, once I've filmed the game, it takes a couple hours to put it up there, not that big a deal. Whereas these ones, to write, to edit, to find the images, the clips and stuff like that, these things can take days or even a week or two. So I've had to kind of slow down the pace. I know I used to release them once a week, but they're a lot of work. So I appreciate the patience, everyone waiting. And here we have our next one. Okay. So we've looked at a lot of things so far. We've looked at models, we've looked at community, we've looked at all kinds of stuff, and there's more to look at. So today we're going to be looking at business practices and treatment of customers. Now this might not sound super sexy, but I still think it's an important part of a company that you're going to be entering into a long-term relationship. I mean, that sounds really dumb, but as anyone who has been playing in this hobby for a while can tell you, when you get into this hobby, you're essentially getting married. And I'm not going to take that analogy any further. We're just going to leave that where it is. So, this isn't the same thing as community. Community is about, well, communication. This is about money. Money exchange. Where's it going? Who's it coming from? And what's it being put towards? All right, so, as always, let's start with GW because this is going to be the longer analysis of the two. So to get ready for this, I actually downloaded and read the first part of Games Workshop's 2023 Yearly Revenue Report. Not the extensive number crunching and charts and graphs and stuff, but I read the Chair's report and the Strategic report right at the beginning. And so I thought a good place to start, since we're talking about business practices and business models and stuff, would be to look over some of the highlights of what I noticed in that report to give us an idea of what kinds of decisions are made at the very top so that we can anticipate what's going to trickle down to us players at the bottom. All right, so first of all, the report announced, and we can see here, that this was a good year for GW. A £15 million increase in revenue over the last year. Now, I'm pretty sure that is because of the release of 10th edition. New editions usually bring in a huge spike of revenue as players buy all the new stuff. Nothing major there, but £15 million over last year. That's pretty good. This next part earns some respect from me. The company states that everything that it's done as far as renovations and expansions and new developments and all this stuff, all of it was done without borrowing money. That GW never resorts to debt. So that's pretty sound financial advice. They save up, they build up a cash reserve, and then they invest that. Now that's sound financial advice for individuals, companies, heck, even countries should be doing stuff like that. At the same time, this little gremlin on my shoulder says that it's much easier to avoid borrowing and use cash reserves when you charge too much and bank the huge profits. Well, indeed, and that's a question that we can visit in another video. When players have to look at the products and ask themselves, is this thing actually worth it? Is this codex worth $60? I remember when $60 would get you 3 codexes, and now it gets you 1. Now another little gremlin on my shoulder says, you actually do have debt. It's called your investors. You owe them. They have loaned you money. And you even pay interest on that debt. It's called a dividend. Now, there are companies that aren't traded and still don't take loans. They really do bank up their cash and then spend it. GW is not one of them. So for them to say we have no debt and then in their very next line talk about their responsibilities to investors seems disingenuous or just plain blind. Now, moving on. Here's something that I found very concerning. That next line I mentioned about responsibility to investors, well, here it is. It says, understandably, society and investors have come to expect more from companies to reflect their responsibilities beyond profit. And the line after that says, Our response to this is to take a straightforward approach based on doing the right thing so that we can succeed forever. You sound like some kind of guidance counselor or cheerleader. What kind of BS is that? Do the right thing so we can succeed forever? I mean, what are you, 8? The other thing I notice in that statement, there's one group that is not mentioned about GW having a responsibility towards, and that's their players. They have just stated here that their decisions are now going to be made based on social pressure and investment pressure, quote, beyond profits. And that's where I start to get nervous. A company should only care about 2 groups, its investors and its customers, because that's where all their money is coming from. And if you want to stay in business, you please those 2 groups. If someone isn't a customer, isn't an investor, isn't giving you any money, but demands that you do this or that, well, I mean, do you know what you can tell them to do?
Put down and piss off.
Unless that non-paying entity is blowing the whistle on something super shady or illegal that you're doing, they can go fly a kite. But nope. GW has stated right there that they're going to listen to investors and, quote, society. Now, I'm curious, who speaks for society? And as I said before, where are the players? So I read that. I started having fears of a 3-letter acronym. And sadly, on page 7, I found it. Quote, we also take an ambitious approach to aligning ourselves with broader stakeholders' opinions on how we run Games Workshop. We have, in the period reported, continued our focus on environmental, social, and governance areas, ESG. So it's true. GW plans on taking marching orders from stockholders, which makes sense, and from society, whatever that means, and they're jumping into the ESG pool. They go on to talk about a commitment to environmental concerns. Guys, I don't think you should be getting in bed with environmentalists when the bulk of your business is making mountains of plastic. I'm just saying. So, there you have it. That is their 2 driving forces going forward. Society, whoever that is, and their shareholders. Us players and customers, I guess we will lick the crumbs that fall off the table, perhaps. So that's the chair's report. So let's move on now to their business strategy section. What's their plan, long-term strategy, and how do they plan to achieve it? So, first, they say their goal is to make the best models in the world. To be honest, I think they're up there, for sure. In fact, I made an entire video about it, and I even got a comment from one of you viewers that said, I seem to be gushing a little too much to then turn around and hand the video over to OnePage Rules. So, okay, maybe I did come across a little more kind to GW, but I still think they make good models. Anyways, so I read this, that they want to make the best models in the world. But this is Games Workshop, so let's read on. They say, we understand that what we make may not appeal to everyone. So to recruit and retain customers, we are absolutely focused on making our models the best in the world. In order to continue to do that forever, there's that forever again, and to deliver a decent return to our owners, we sell our miniatures for a price that we believe represents the investment in their quality. Now, according to that logic then, as price increases, quality increases. But if that's true, then these models are literally like fine wine, because models that have been made years ago and are still sitting on the shelves are getting more expensive as they sit there. And then for some strange reason, once they get purchased, the price plummets. The resale value of models, I think, is a little closer to what these things should actually be sold for. All right, so that's the first bit of their strategy. Second part. To control our IP like it's in a straitjacket so that anyone who wants to use it has to pay. Wait, what? Oh, that's not what it actually says, sorry. What it actually says is the second element is that we make fantasy miniatures based on our endless imaginary worlds. This gives us control over the imaginary and style that we use and ownership of the IP. Aside from our core business, we are looking constantly to grow our licensing to come from opportunities to use our IP in other markets. All right, so maybe my initial summary was a little bit of an overestimation, but we only have to look at what happened with YouTube to realize that maybe it wasn't that much of an overestimation. All right, let's go on now. Number 3, the third element is that we are customer focused. So that's interesting. This is the first time that customers have appeared in this report. I'm on page 4. We're on the third element of their strategy, and they have finally said, oh yeah, we're focusing on customers. And this next statement's really weird. It says, we aim to communicate in an open, fun way. Now, on the one hand, I get that. The Warhammer community, it's fun. As I said in one of my other videos, some of the little video clips they released there, to use the word the British love, it's cheeky. But at the same time, how do you make it fun when you announce that you're raising your prices yet again? I mean, there's no fun way to deliver bad news. You can hire a clown and a stripper to tell me that I've got terminal cancer, but that's not going to make the news any more enjoyable. So it just seems a little weird to me that they haven't mentioned customers yet as far as a group that they feel responsible to, and yet at the same time they say they want to be customer focused. Like, which one is it? Are you going to listen to your customers, or are you going to listen to society? Pick one. You can't have both, because I guarantee you, your customers and society are not going to tell you to do the same things. Now, the last statement in this third element is also kind of interesting. Whoever and wherever our customers are, and in whichever way they want to engage with Warhammer, we will do our utmost to support them. Okay, that's kind of interesting. They don't exactly say that they listen to customers for what the customers want, right? They're not saying, tell us what you want and we'll make it. They're saying, we'll tell you what we make and you'll want it. Or tell us what you want from what we already make. Or at least that's how I read it. Maybe I'm just getting really cynical by this point, which is entirely possible. Okay, the fourth element they have is global reach. Nothing major there. They're an international company. They want to continue to sell to the whole world. I want them to as well. I want the company to do well because I enjoy the game, all this other stuff aside. The fifth element is being focused on cash. Maybe they should have worded that one a little bit differently. I mean, yeah. All right, but here's the next part. By delivering a good cash return every year, we can continue to innovate, surprise, and delight our loyal existing customers and new customers with great products. Now note the order there. By getting a good return, we continue to make customers happy. I thought it's supposed to be the other way around. You make the customer happy, and that's what makes you profits for your return. This is like the third or fourth time in this report that GW has specifically said they're not driven by customer demand. They feel no responsibility to customers. They feel no accountability to customers. They feel more pressure from groups that don't even buy their products than from the people who spend way too much on them. All right, this last bit here. To be around forever. Will they stop using that word? To be around forever, we need to invest in both long-term capital and short-term maintenance projects every year, pay our staff what they have earned for the value they contribute, and deliver surplus cash to our shareholders. Okay, when I worked at GW, I made a teeny bit over minimum wage. I don't know if I can say exactly how much. That might violate some kind of contract I signed, and I don't want to get in trouble. But I can tell you it was a teeny bit over the minimum wage. But I wasn't working there for the money. And I saved so much from that employee discount, it is insane. I didn't get paid much, but I was very happy with the whole compensation because whether I worked 1 day a month, a dozen days a month, I got that discount every single day. Now, I know a few years ago there was a bit of a frenzy. There were quite a few YouTubers who covered this bit of an outcry about GW pay rates. Now, that's not a subject I'm going to touch here. There is no agreement from any two people on what a livable wage is. I don't want to get into that. The report actually mentioned, however, an increase in pay as well as an expansion of benefits like extra weeks paid leave and stuff like that. So I will let other videos cover whether or not GW salaries and pay rates are fair. But for the on-call folks like me, I thought it was just fine. Okay, So now let's skip down a little bit. And I had a little chuckle at this part. Hopefully anyone who has ever had this experience, which I imagine is most of you, you'll get this one too. So they talk a bit about how they use high quality plastic to make their miniatures, which I agree with. They then have this statement: our resin miniatures, designed for more experienced customers, are branded as Forge World and are less widely available than their plastic counterparts. Now, when they say experienced, by that do they mean the people who've invested so much time and money into the hobby that they won't rage quit the first time they try and build Finecast? I imagine they mean something like that, because there's a reason why none of their starter stuff is in resin. I can't tell you how many resin failcast I've broken or snapped just trying to cut the stupid thing out of the sprue. So I'm very glad that they are slowly moving all of the resin into that really nice plastic that they do. Okay, next statement, gotta give them kudos on this one. We are proud to manufacture our product in Nottingham, which is the center of expertise for our global business. It's where we started and where we intend to stay. GW could probably boost profits by relocating corporate offices somewhere else. This report says that they pay 20% in corporate taxes. Now, I'm sure some high-priced lawyers and accountants could find ways to eke out profits by moving this here and moving that there. So kudos to them for just staying put, taking the taxes on the chin, so that they can kind of maintain that home field. So I got to give them some kudos for that. Oh no, it's the gremlin again. What? Yes, Robin Hood. Yes, I know the story. What about it? The bad guy. The sheriff. Yeah, the one who went around taking everybody's money. Where is he from? Sheriff of... Oh. Well, I guess we'll just move on then. Okay. Now, this next statement has me a little confused. I wanted to throw it out there to see what you guys thought. It says their stores, GW stores, only stock Games Workshop products and are, quote, where we recruit the majority of our new customers. Now, I found that one a little bit confusing. That might be true in the UK, but here in the US, I've met far more gamers who met through a friend or through a friendly local gaming store. Now, it's possible that GW interprets it as if a friend brings their friend into a Warhammer store to buy their first models, GW there says that we've recruited. I say that's poaching. I'd say GW can say they recruited if someone walks in on their own and the sales rep there manages to get them into the hobby. That's when the store brought them in. But if a friend does it, no, that doesn't count. No stealing. Okay. Next, there's this paragraph. There's nothing really exciting about the paragraph. I throw it up here because it mentions they did some restructuring, and then there's this list of bigwigs. Lots and lots of bigwigs. There's chief this and director that, and as I was reading this list of titles, I just thought to myself, I wonder how many of these people have ever even built a miniature from the company that they run. I sincerely hope they do, because I'd hate to think that all these decisions are being made by people who are completely disconnected from the product that they make. But I have a sneaking feeling that they don't, because that's just the nature of the corporate world. It doesn't matter what business you're running, you're just running a business. So it's sad, but I'd imagine that the folks at the top level don't own any GW products. All right, I'm not going to show this the part here, but I will mention it. As always, GW posts a 30% profit margin for 2023. So that's the report. That's how they sum up the year and outline where they hope to go in the future. And as I pointed out, their obligations seem to be to special interest groups that aren't a part of the gaming community more than the gaming community itself. And I think that's bad. I don't think that's a good direction, but that's the direction that they've decided to go in. So we're just going to have to see what the fallout is from that one. So let's talk a little bit about the release schedule, since this is how they meet that goal of producing the best models in the world and providing the customers what they want, apparently forever. So the new management took over in, 2016, 2017, and they definitely stepped up the pace of releases. And initially that was good, but I think now it's just too much. You couple that with the cycle of power creep and nerf, and the game could almost get a bipolar diagnosis. I mean, you remember the Votan? The army was so overpowered it actually got its nerf before the actual release date. And then you had, in 9th edition, the series of those campaign books that got released just before 10th edition was announced. And GW knew it, but they quietly let customers spend $50 on books that were going to be redundant in just 6 months. So we go back to that report, and it keeps talking about profit first, customer second. Well, maybe that's it. You're getting customers to buy a whole bunch of books that are useless, and then as a reward, you'll release the new edition. I don't know. I think I'm coming across as way too cynical, so let's just move on. But I do want to point out, though, one of the reasons why I started looking for other games and found OnePage Rules is because I started to feel more like a dairy cow than a customer. I felt that GW didn't look at me as, you could buy our stuff if we make what you want. They looked at me and they said, you have money we don't have yet. How do we get that? We'll release this and then we'll change this rule so you have to buy it or you can't play anymore. So if we want to look at examples where I think GW is just gouging a little bit, let's talk about dice. $40 for a dice set that's plain, opaque, has one special marking for the 6. I mean, that's pretty sad. At one point, GW sold dice that were marbled or multicolored that had markings on both the 6 and the 1, and they were $20 for a set of 20 dice. Baron of Dice sells sets of 25, which are as good looking, if not better, for $32, and they come in a nice, reusable metal tin. Now, GW used to give nice plastic cases, those really hard plastic cases. Then they switched to cardboard boxes, not as nice, but still reusable. And then it gave way to blister packs. And once those are opened, you can't ever use them again. So their stock report said their prices are a reflection of quality. I'm calling BS on the dice. The dice are getting worse as the price goes up. Now, with the release of 10th edition, there is a bit of a change in that I have to acknowledge. The new ultramarine dice, they look decent. The dice aren't just solid opaque, they have some flair to them. They're only $32 instead of $40, and they're in a reusable cardboard box. But that cardboard box only holds 16 dice, not 20 like before, or 25 from the Baron. So that's $2 a dice for GW and $1.25 for the Baron. And the Baron gives you a reusable container on top of it. So, what I'm seeing here is you have a company that makes dice that are as good, if not better, and cheaper. 3D printing is increasingly making models that are as good, if not better, and cheaper. I'm starting to see why GW is putting more of a grip on their IP. Increasingly, it will be the only thing that can't be copied and sold for cheaper. It's the one thing that they have that nobody else can use without their permission. So maybe that's what's happening here. I don't think I buy into the argument I've heard from some YouTubers that GW is planning to get out of the model game. If they are, they flat out lied to their investors in that report, and that's a bad thing to do. All right, so let's move on to something else. List building. Oh, I love list building. No, seriously. I think it's a ton of fun to sit around and play with the ideas of thematic armies, and I'll bet some of you do too. Given how detailed and complex the game is, and how much players already spend on models, supplies, books, terrain, why can't GW just give us the army builder for free? Currently, non-subscribers to Warhammer Plus can build one army at a time. Those who pay for their full Warhammer Plus subscription can build more, but this just in. Once the codex releases, GW pulls the index data and locks everything. You can't see squat. Not even a teaser of some battle line unit cards and maybe one character just to whet the appetite of players. Nope. Within a year, if you don't have a Warhammer Plus account, you might as well delete that app because it's going to be useless. I mean, it has the main rules. I downloaded those and just put those in my book reader instead. So just give us the stupid list builder. If you're not familiar with it, I should say, Battlescribe is a free list building software that was what everybody used in 7th and 8th. And just as I argue that a reduction in prices will bring in more overall sales, I argue that a free list builder will also bring in more money than it costs to make and maintain that list. I started an orc army because once I was sitting in this work meeting What, you actually pay attention in your work meetings? Anyways, I'm in this work meeting. I start building an orc list on Battlescribe just to see what I could come up with. Like, I thought, well, it'd be fun to have this or build this, and how many orcs could I get for this many points? And I had a ton of fun with it. And soon I had this theoretical 2,000 point army list. And it just so happened that that Christmas, one of the battle forces that Games Workshop released was orcs. And about 3/4 of that box was on my list. And that was it. I bought into a new army, and I probably spent a total of about $600 or $700 because I could list build for free. So it looks like within a year I'll be needing to download Battlescribe again. So GW, if you're listening, I know you're probably not, but make the list builder free. Stop being such a tightwad. What have you got to lose? Players making a list doesn't cost you anything, and instead, it's interactive advertising. The longer they play around with those lists, the more likely they will buy the stuff that they're building. Okay, take a breath, and we shall move on. So let's talk about YouTube. Oh God, I need to take a break. YouTube. I don't need to say too much about this. Everyone remembers it. GW went on a rampage, shut down every YouTube channel that was producing fan art and animation using Games Workshop IP. That also took out an incalculable amount of free advertisement and stuck it behind a paywall that hasn't exactly become what GW envisioned. Now, the annual report showed that they did make a 30% increase this year, from 100,000 subscriptions to 130,000 subscriptions. But I still think Warhammer Plus was just a stupid idea. They should have made a deal with Amazon, Hulu, Netflix to put all those shows on streaming platforms and put the lore, painting, and bat rep on a monetized YouTube channel. By putting the videos on other platforms, they would have had the entire world as their market. And I guarantee you there will be tons of viewers who would watch the show, get hooked, and then look into buying the game, look into buying other products. Instead, all of those cartoons, all of those animations, all those shows are behind a paywall that no one is going to buy into who isn't already immersed in the hobby. Your starting market is your current player base. You can only go down from there. It's like going fishing in the barrel of fish you caught the day before. But apparently that's what they're doing. Now, I am curious to see what's going to happen with this Henry Cavill live action thing, because that is supposed to, at least last I heard, they're negotiating with Amazon for that. And who knows, maybe if that takes off, GW will come to its senses and have some kind of deal that maybe if you have an Amazon Plus account, they'll blend it with your Warhammer Plus account. I don't know. GW seems to not like to work with others unless they have a lot of control, and there's no way they're going to control Amazon. So I think I'm just dreaming at this point. But anyways, let's end this on a high note, the GW side. Customer service. I have never heard of someone having a bad experience with GW customer service, and I've heard a few examples where they had some pretty amazing experiences. So I knew this guy who once bought an army box. It was a Chaos army box. It was kind of like the equivalent of a battle force. Multiple infantry units, a forge fiend, a couple characters, like a nice decent army starter box. And as he was building it, the rear door on the Rhino, the piece was bent, like really bad. Even if you tried to put it together, there was a big enough space for you to stick your finger in. So he contacts GW, and they send him a new kit. Not a Rhino kit. They send him an entirely new army box. He got a free army box just because of one bent door. Now, when I started buying tons of stuff while I was an employee, I started getting my share of misprints and miscasts. So I once bought a Riptide that was flat missing a piece. It was an ankle piece. And when I contacted them, they sent me just that piece. When I was building my Caradron, I bought an ironclad. One of the cables that you're supposed to attach the top balloon with, it was just flat out miscast. It was missing a part. And they said once I showed them a receipt of the purchase and a photo of the miscast, they would send me just that piece. I never got an entire new kit. So I don't know if this means anything, and maybe it does. But the guy I know who got the entire box set, that was in 7th edition with the old CEO. My problems were in 8th edition with the new one. I wonder if one of the big things that GW did was to say, all right, if folks are missing a part, we'll send them the part, but enough of this giving them free stuff. And that might be one way that they started increasing their profits. Who knows? it makes sense, and you can't exactly blame them. I mean, if they send you a broken model, they replace the model, but nowhere does it say they have to give you the whole darn thing. So we'll end on that for GW. That at least once they've sold you all this stuff that's too high priced, they take care of you. I don't know if that offsets it, but that's what it is. So now let's talk a little bit about OPR. Clearly this video is a little longer than the rest. Thanks for sticking with me. So OPR, they're dabbling with what might be the future business model of tabletop gaming, the subscription service. Now get ready for story time. My first job, this is going to tell you how old I am. My first job in high school was working at a Blockbuster Video. Now, if you had told me that within 1 decade of high school, the video store I worked in, the entire chain I worked for, would be gone, and instead people would get to watch unlimited movies for a monthly subscription of $10, I would have said that's impossible. How can you make money giving a month of unlimited views for the cost of renting 2 videos? Yet, here we are, with Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and a whole bunch of others. So, by selling only the STL files, OnePage Rules has turned their game into a subscription service. For $10 a month, as a Patreon member, I get just about everything the company has to offer. I still have to pay the cost of printing, but as I pointed out in my video on printing versus buying, printers are getting cheaper, they're getting better, they're getting faster, and they're getting easier to use. I mean, just browse some of the major websites like My Mini Factory, Cults 3D, that allow you to find 3D printing STLs, and you will be amazed at the stuff that is starting to emerge. And as the printers get easier to match the quality of the STL files, I don't know if GW selling the models themselves is going to turn out like Blockbuster renting the videos. I know it sounds crazy, but I would have said the same thing about video stores. And as I also mentioned on that website, if you don't want to invest in a printer and do all that stuff, there's still folks on places like Etsy that will print them for you. And as we saw in the video, they can still do it cheaper. What about the YouTube thing? What about dealing with people who use their IP? Mentioned this before, so I'll be quick. While GW actively went after YouTubers who made use of their IP and shut them down, OnePage Rules links YouTubers who play their games and use their products on their website. So I put some of my OnePage Rules battle reports on the OPR Discord channel, and I keep checking to see if maybe one of these days it shows up on the OnePage Rules website. I think that would be pretty cool. So I'll keep checking. It's one of those long-term goals on the bucket list. And then as for list building, OnePage Rules provides access to a free army builder that contains every codex and unit for all of their major games. The one thing that I don't think is included is their knockoff of Necromunda, Gang Wars. That's not on there. But everything else is. And this list builder they've created, you can use it on your desktop, your tablet, your phone. It's very intuitive. It's easy to use. It's accurate. It's made by the people who make the game. Once you've put the list together, with a single touch of a button, you can print it out as army cards or as a condensed list that seldom takes more than, you guessed it, 1 page, even though it has all the special rules on there too. Those who join the OPR Patreon have access to their custom builder, where they can create every unit and hero in their entire army from the ground up. You can literally build an army around whatever kind of stat line you want for your models, and it will still be relatively balanced with the already existing armies in OnePage Rules. And maybe one of these days I'll do a video showing it off. I think it's amazing. And it's a lot of fun to sit down and play around with it and think, well, would this be worth printing an army about? This looks like kind of fun. So OnePage Rules is very young, so it's not beholden to stockholders. It doesn't have the overhead. I think it's just one guy who contracts out to the various people to do the sketches and the design and all that. So, of course, he's got to be a lot friendlier with his customers and his prices and how he delivers his products, because if he were to treat his customers the way Games Workshop does, I imagine OnePage Rules would already be gone. Now, it's entirely possible that OnePage Rules is in its phase right now that Games Workshop was in the 1980s. and it'll slowly grow, and then something will happen and it will take off. And maybe OnePage Rules will one day grow into something more gargantuan, and it'll become worried about revenue reports and about dividends and about society. I don't even know, maybe this is true about all hobby companies. Not to sound cliche, but it seems these companies, you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. So, in the end, I don't think there's a winner, because I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know what's going to happen to Games Workshop. I don't know what's going to happen to OnePage Rules. So I'm not saying OPR is the winner, but there's a warning here. For OnePage Rules, please get big, please get huge, but don't become like Games Workshop when you do. The way you're doing things right now is good enough.